Today on With the First Pick, we're joined by Vikings General Manager Kwesi Adofo-Mensah. I'm Ryan Wilson. That's former Titans GM Ran Carthon. And Ran, you know Kwesi well. Of course, you guys were together in San Francisco, but I don't know if you knew this. Kwesi went to a college of what a lot of folks are calling the University of Florida of the Northeast, so you guys have that in common too. Hey, Kwesi, before I turn this thing over to Ran, I just want to let you know that Ran wanted these segments branded, so we're legally obligated to call this thing Carthon's Corner.
I like it.
Ran, go ahead, brother.
I like it.
That's funny. I'm gonna let you have that one. But this guy, this is a guy I consider my brother, one of my brothers. And Kwesi, as we've been doing this, I like to give an intro to who we're bringing on.
Oh boy.
So here's my intro for Kwesi. He's a proud Ghanaian. Let's start there. He's my finance instructor, a Princeton alum, basketball player, proud husband, proud father to 2 boys. He's my brother from another, Cherry Hill's own King Kwesi, a.k.a. Kwesi Adofo-Mensah. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us with the First Pick podcast. So we appreciate you coming on, Kwesi.
My brother, man. So we're going nicknames. So I got to tell him Ran Wonders what I call you. I love this guy. You know, I was thinking about before coming on, you know, we obviously were coworkers, but there's a moment where you become boys. Like, you know, you're in meetings together and you talk and all that stuff. And I remember the moment we became boys because I forget how it happened. We're just sitting around talking. And he comes up to me and he says from Coming to America, "Oh my word, it is you." Like he said something like that. And I mean, I remember to this day where we were on the ground laughing. I was like, this guy's going to be a friend of mine for the rest of my life. So grateful for our friendship. His journey, I probably, you know, am more proud of him than maybe he is of himself. Just so happy to have him in his life. He's got a great family, heaven, and everybody in his life. We're just grateful to be connected to him.
No, I appreciate that because I usually don't get like, you know, sentimental thoughts like this working with Ryan and you know, one of our producers from a previous on the other show that we do, Sharon. So I'm always getting badgered. So I appreciate that. and for the record, because this always perturbs me to a degree. Can you just for the listeners, can you just pronounce your first name for everybody?
So it's funny. I got to talk in a couple of weeks for a private. So Ghanaian, it's Kwesi, like that's how you actually say my name, Kwesi. But I don't really put that on people. You don't put mom's enunciation on people. So I just say Kwesi, you know, like just like that. But the actual true is Kwesi. But you know, we'll just for American purposes, first day of school, making sure that they're not sitting on you for 10 minutes while you're sweating in your chair. We just say Kwesi. Yeah.
Rand, did I do okay with the pronunciation?
Yeah, no, you're great. I just hate to hear people say Kwesi.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. It can be spelled different ways in our culture. A lot of times it'll be spelled with an A. My mom chose the E, you know, to maybe to be special. I don't know. So I always understand that. The hardest part is sometimes, you know, especially in college, maybe you have relationships with people, you've been around them and they may be saying your name wrong and it almost gets too far where you don't want to correct them because you feel like you're close. But, you know, that's part of the growth. My wife, that'll be the first one. And she hears it wrong. She's jumping down on people. But no, thank you for asking and clarifying that.
No, I had to because it when I hear people say Kwesi, it just makes my skin crawl a little bit. So I know you. I know how your brain works a little bit because it's a lot of knowledge up there. So before we truly kick off this interview, I got to ask you, what is Kwesi's song of the day?
Oh, man, I'm the one who asks people that. Oh, man, that's a good one. You know, so I've been listening to, you know, we talk about sometimes, you know, sometimes the new music just doesn't hit you the same way. So you're always going back to your old stuff. So I've been listening to Pusha T's Daytona a little bit, that album, that hard piano, that song, Hard Piano. I just love how that beat comes in. And sometimes it kind of puts me in that right mind frame. This job can be challenging at times. And so sometimes you need a little music to get you through those moments and not just get through those moments, like strive through that moments and kind of say, I'm a bad man and I can stand at the end of this day. So sometimes I'll go to my guy Push or some other people to get in that space.
Yeah, shout out to the Clips and my man No Malice. They got a new album coming. Can't wait to hear that. So
Yes.
just to
See, this is where I come. See, I missed this. I don't get these. I'm gonna be behind on music if Rand didn't tell me that.
So first of all, just us as a podcast, me as your brother, I've already talked to you on the phone when it happened, but just want to congratulate you on the extension and just ask you, like, what does that mean to get this extension and to continue to working with, Kevin O'Connell to build the Minnesota Vikings into a championship team?
It's what you just finished with. It's an opportunity to continue doing what we're doing. Through the whole process, people kept asking me, are you focused on it? And I just wasn't, because our sole goal since we got here was to do something this organization hasn't done before. So what am I going to wake up tomorrow to do? It's going to be to do the same thing I did the day before, which is to try and get us to the place we want to go. And that's with my partner, Kev. So the willingness of the Wilfs to continue to give us the opportunity to do that. That's kind of why I'm just grateful. And I promise this is no sneak diss to anybody in the state of Tennessee, but this job, you grow into this job. It takes time. Like, there's stuff I look back on my first year and can't believe, you're always self-reflecting and trying to be better. And we're entering our fourth year, and I feel like we are rolling. We're getting rolling, and it would be so crushed to maybe think that would have been cut short from at any time before that. So really, it's a lot of just gratitude that we've been able to succeed and win games while we were building, just like a player. Players don't come in the league ready-made. They have to learn they maybe have athleticism and spirit and all that stuff, but they got to get their steps right, know their scheme. A GM's literally no different. Learn how to lead people, build consensus, build buy-in, things like that. It takes time, and you got to build trust with people. You can tell people something, or we can have a shared memory, a shared collection of decisions that we've made together, where we can all point back to, hey, remember that time where you said this, and man, it was right. I really wish I had listened to you. That type of stuff you kind of build as an organization. So just so fortunate to be able to continue on.
Hey, Rand, can I ask a follow-up? You gave me the go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, Ryan.
I was trying to make sure you were okay. I didn't want to step on your toes. I'm glad you mentioned that, Kwesi, because I've been sort of talking about this, and Rand's probably tired of hearing me talk about it. But I've been going back and watching sort of the behind-the-scenes process for a lot of these teams through the combine up to the draft. And it feels like, and I don't know Kevin O'Connell, and I haven't met you until just now, but he came in on either day 2 or day 3 of the draft and had his Kwesi mustache on. And it feels like your relationship is a really special one, number one. And the answer is obvious, but I'm just sort of curious in your situation in particular, how important is it to have that relationship with a head coach? Because sometimes when things start going south for an organization, we see the head coach shuts his door, the GM shuts their door, and then inevitably it happens. But it feels like you guys are in lockstep with a lot of what you want to get accomplished.
Yeah, you said it right, man. That's my brother. These decisions you make as a general manager, players, all that stuff, like pairing with the head coach is the most important thing you're going to do. And thinking back to that time, I remember leaving the interview and just, coming to my little process and seeing all the evidence or all the different guys. And I'm like, man, I feel like this is the guy. This is the guy that I want to do this with. So when I called him, I kind of explained that. And I remember never forget how it made me feel. He's like, Kwesi, I only want to do this once. We're doing this together. He didn't really know me that well. We obviously shared a year together in San Francisco, but the type of character that he has to say that in that moment. I mean, then you talk about somebody who's, a proud husband, a father, understands how relationships evolve and take time. And we work at our relationship. It's not always roses. There are times where we don't always see eye to eye, but we have a way of trusting each other and how we communicate to each other. I believe in him so much. He believes in me so much. So if we're really passionate about something, I think there's always a voice and an audience in the other person just because of the trust. And at the end of the day, we also, this is about relationships. Me and Rand, we could get together for an hour and we'll cut up about anything but football for about 45 minutes. And then 15 minutes, we'll get into some high level football stuff. So Kevin's just a great guy. We laugh a lot. We laugh all the time. When he came, that was genuine. When he came with that mustache, I was dead. That was a great moment. I think I saw the memes. The internet is undefeated. So they made us Mario and Luigi. And I thought that was, I don't pay attention to a lot of it, but that was pretty funny to me. But love him. It contributes to a great work environment. I talked to a former player who's back here now. He was talking about going the different stops and how much he loved it here. And I'm always asking people, because they say that, and as a leader, you want to make sure you keep doing what everybody's attracted to. And they were just talking about the work environment. And you can see your point. I feel like you can sense when two people have a great relationship, and it just permeates throughout the building. And I give him a lot of credit for that. I'll give our staff a lot of credit for that. It's great sharing this great organization with him as leaders, and I'm excited we get to do it together for a little bit longer.
So, Kwesi, you know me. You know we like to have fun. These are serious questions, but I'm always got something up my sleeve. So you didn't come up, the traditional way, quote unquote, right? You didn't come up the traditional way of a scout. But to that point, if you could go back in time and tell this person that you would be an NFL GM, what would this person think and say if they knew the path and the journey that you've been on and to the spot that you're in right now?
Oh my God. I don't know how you got this picture, boy. I don't know how you might have my mom or I know you have my wife's number. Oh boy. Pizza Den though. They had some fire cheese pizza. Let me just first start off by saying that. He'd be unbelievably blown away, and sometimes in this life, you get bogged down with the details and all the things that happen, but there's some 15-year-old, I don't know, I think I was probably 6, 7 years old. There's some child inside of you that is unbelievably grateful for all the things that have happened to you in your life. And really, really appreciating the fact that if little things could have happened, you'd be going a completely different way. If I didn't, approach that interview in San Francisco a certain way or different things like that. But I will tell you that kid loved football. That was his first love. My parents always tell this story. Obviously, they're immigrants, so there wasn't a lot of football knowledge in my household. But they said 3 years old, I was in front of that little TV watching the Eagles games like life depended on it. And I think that kid really loved football. And he loved math, and he can't believe that those two things kind of took him to a certain place. And that's the only thing I would probably tell every kid, that if you want to take one thing from me, just chase your passions, be as curious as you can, and crazy things can happen if you work hard and just be grateful for it.
So we've talked about you getting an extension, but along with you getting an extension, and obviously Kevin got his extension a little bit earlier, you thought enough of these next two guys I'm about to mention to not only give them an extension, but give them a promotion. And so you promoted Demitrius Washington and Ryan Grigson to assistant GM. Now, Ryan Grigson has been a former GM. He's seen as a football guy. Demitrius is on his steady climb. He was one of your first hires when you became GM, and he's seen more as the analytic guy. Like, what has it meant to have your two lieutenants be an extension of both phases of your life into this role?
I think you just nailed it perfectly. I want, both minds in the room when I'm not there. And also I want both minds in the room with me when we're making big decisions. But don't get it twisted. Ryan Grigson is unbelievably growth mindset oriented. He sits in our analytics meetings. He's trying to learn. He's trying to grow. And Demitrius himself that guy is a traditional scout. He's grinding tape. He's watching guys. The guys waking up at 1 a.m. sending me cut-ups and things like that. So they started out as these almost two separate entities where they're covering each other's blind spots, but they've kind of merged into this beautiful, beautiful, kind of team. They're this unique odd couple. I love their dynamic. Those two walk in a room and you wouldn't know how close they are, how much they have in common. So that's been one of the cool things when, again, you pick a head coach or you bring staff together, when they vibe and they get along, and then they've elevated me. I thought it was important to make sure we announced their promotions at the same time as mine, because I wouldn't be here without them. I think these times where everybody wants to point to themselves, I want to make sure that we pointed to the people that mattered a lot to how this thing has gone.
Hey, Rand, can I ask you your Ryan Grigson story when you first met him and he was wearing his team shirt and you were confused?
Kwesi, have you ever heard this story?
I don't think I've heard this story.
So Grigson was literally like one of the first scouts that talked to me about personnel. And I won't say where we were for the sake of Ryan Grigson, but it was myself, it was Buddy Baker, it was Grigson, and it was Aaron Moorhead. And this is when Griggs was working with the Philadelphia Eagles. And let's just say we were enjoying an evening in Indianapolis after a preseason game, and Griggs is walking around with his Eagles polo on. And so I just asked him, because I really didn't know who he was, and I just asked him, about his background, like, hey, man, why are you wearing an Eagles shirt? And he told me he was scouting. And so I asked him, I was like, why scouting and not coaching? And he told me about the longevity and the consistency in scouting, which I had already kind of had an interest in scouting. but hearing someone that close that was in it talk to me about it made a world of a difference. And I talked to Griggs, but I told him, like, hey man, like, you were one of the first real people outside of my dad to talk to me about scouting. So I've always appreciated RG for that. So shout out to Griggs and shout out to Meech as well. Like, and I'm glad you said that about both. We have a way in our league of just putting people in boxes because that's the way we know them. But you don't know what people have done to evolve and grow, in their realm. And so I've spent countless hours with Demetrius watching film and learning about analytics. Like Ryan, like I didn't have a true understanding or appreciation, if you will, for analytics until I met Kwesi and Demitrius. And because for so long, our league made analytics scouting, and they were, like two Rams butting heads. But it wasn't until we got to San Francisco where these guys sat me down and showed me how they work together and how they merge together and how their checks and balances. So I'm glad you was able to say that about both of those dudes, because I have nothing but the utmost respect for those guys.
And while we passing flowers around, I got to give a lot of shout to Rand. I probably said it in my intro press conference, but in those early years when I was helping him with analytics, he was helping me with football. And I think I tell people all the time how I was able to get here was I didn't think I knew anything, but I wasn't scared to ask questions, and I had enough people who liked me enough to probably listen to my worst. Rand could probably tell you some questions like, hey, that's a future GM who asked that question, but I asked it because I wanted to know. And that helped me build and learn and grow and do other things. So he was one of the people that, always took the 5 minutes that I needed to get on the whiteboard and show me what did Kyle mean here? What did John mean here? Or how do you look at this? So just so fortunate for that while we're passing out flowers.
You see how that's done, Ryan? You can just give flowers.
Here's the thing. I will say Kwesi is not wrong. Like, you are incredibly generous with your time and all the stuff that you know. And the other thing I took away from your answer, Kwesi, is this. That no matter where you are, and it's taken me a lot of years to figure out that, and being comfortable with who you are, it's okay to ask questions. Like, it's okay to figure out the things that you don't know, because if you don't know them, you're never going to learn them. You just got to have that confidence. And Kwesi, it feels like you've had that earlier than a lot of folks, at least me. So I am very grateful for both of you. But if I'm going to be honest, Kwesi, I'm more grateful for Ryan right now, just because his self-esteem needs it.
Nah, I appreciate that. So Kwesi, like, you came up in your previous life, you were a commodities trader. Yep. And I know a lot has been made about, that part of your background, but talk to us a little bit how of the commodity trading and your trading expertise, if you will, has come into play in the NFL. I mean, you've executed 25 total trades since becoming GM.
Isn't that right? That many?
Yes, 25 total trades. If we're correct, somebody out there find out for sure. And 11 draft trades. So talk to us a little bit about how those two, fields of your life have come together.
And I always pause at this question. I'm going to answer it, but I want to make sure I'm clear here. I think there is an unbelievable amount of talented GMs in the league who get to the same things that I'm going to talk about, but have got it from a different background. I just happen to work in that field, and that's how I learned these things. But, you could have learned these things from just working for some great GMs in the past who've done this job at a high level, the Howie Rosemans or whomever. I happen to learn it from trading. But really, for me, it's just a willingness to appreciate, accept, and take risk. That's kind of what you learn in that world where I'm making a bet, and this bet might not work. But if I make 10 of these bets and I have a really great process, I think I'm going to win 6.5 to 7 times, and I think you're going to win 5.5 or 6, and that's going to be one margin, that's going to be one edge. And making sure that when you make these bets, just try not to make the bet that's going to take you out of the game. Never make the bet that's going to take you out of the game. And then finally, just a willingness to accept risk, knowing that, you know how draft day works. People are calling you for this home run deal in their favor. And you're like, why would I do that? I try and find deals that work out for both of us. And because I have a long-term vision this is going to fit. And this is one of 3 moves that we might make into our future. And so I think the willingness to just accept risk and knowing that every single deal doesn't need to be a home run. If you look at the portfolio together, that's kind of how I learned that stuff. But conversely, you always want to make sure you're not trying to do too much. I think if I look back on my first couple of years here, and I've said it in press conferences before, I think there was a little bit of trying to hit the home run and trying to compete now, rebuild the team, all these different things. And sometimes you just need to step back, just put one foot in front of the other and hit singles and build. And so I think you want to make sure that you have that ability, the willingness to accept risk, but also know when sometimes it's time to fold your cards, wait for the next set of hands, and keep going from there.
So, and we've talked about it, and again, so the trades that you have made in previous years led you to come into this draft with only 4 picks. Now, you ended up making 5 because you're Kwesi, you made another trade and was able to get, another pick. But talk to us about initially coming into the draft with just 4 picks, and if your process varied any, right? Because you have to evaluate so many players, and you have to, knowing that you may have 7 to 8, 9, 10, 11 if you have a lot of draft capital swings at it, but you only came in with 4. Did it alter your process at all, or how'd you guys go about it?
Honestly, kind of what I finished that last question with, what I wanted to make sure was, because we had 4 picks, that I wasn't going in there trying to hit a home run. And so I set with the mindset like, hey, if we only pick 4 times, if we only stand up and clap 4 times at the picks that were allotted to me at the start of the draft, what is the best way to maximize those 4 picks? Obviously, given you can't control exactly what happens in front of you. So that really kind of calmed everybody down and said, hey, guys, I just let our initial meetings like, hey, if we pick 4 times, I think we're going to find 4 really great players. Our roster's in a really great space. One of the reasons we were able to do that trade the year before was we knew we were probably going to be operating with a younger quarterback and had some salary space to use for veteran players. So we thought Dallas was a unique opportunity to get a type of player that we wouldn't be able to get when we start winning games and, maybe picking in the bottom third of the first round. So, that's kind of what led to that. And I wanted to make sure that we just made sure that we weren't trying to hit home runs and just trying to start from there. But only thing I would add to that is we couldn't change our approach because, if you did want to trade back, your ability to trade back is because you have other options, right? Because you've done so much work, you've done your board to a great ability, and instead of this one, we got these 2 players behind that I think would be just as good. So I couldn't really tell our scouts, hey, less focus or anything like that. Is almost like heightened. If there's going to be a great trade back, it's because we know this board so well. And also we're entering our 4th draft together. You're just starting to roll. Your system's starting to go. It's starting to feel great. That was part of the reason I felt bad about it, because I felt like our group, we're rolling so well that, I was like, it's almost like Christmas presents on Christmas Day. There's only 4 presents under the tree, but we were able to get 5. And then I thought we had a great UDFA process and got some great guys in that as well.
All right, Quay, so I know we're running short on time. We're going to transition to what's become one of my favorite portions of the show. And this is a rapid fire question session. We're calling it on the clock. So you'll be on the clock. And so our first question, you ready for it?
Okay, here we go.
What athlete from another sport would you sign if rules didn't matter?
I'm not giving you the easy answer in LeBron. So, although you know what, Anthony Edwards just came through yesterday. He was doing some off-season work. That is in person. That is a man for him to move like that. I don't think until you walk up on him, you appreciate how big he is. I know he was a really good high school player, football player coming up. He'd be pretty interesting as I don't know. He'd be a big body wide receiver, maybe some move area H-back stuff. He's a talented athlete. It was cool to see him up close. He's got a type of personality Justin has, just a light up the room type of personality. So I'd say Ant.
So we've actually, because we've had other people on the show and we've had that Anthony Edwards answer before. Okay. What's your go-to draft day snack?
Oh. Man, I'm one of those, those Uncrustables PB&Js. It's bad, man. I gotta stop. My doctor's gonna watch this. I gotta stop. But that's my go-to. I got 2 little kids now, so I feel like I got some more years where I'm going to be forced to eat them. But that's my go-to draft day.
Grape or strawberry?
You know what? I was an early grape guy. I didn't even give strawberry a chance. Then somebody told me to give him a chance. Now I'm a strawberry guy. Obviously I'll still eat grape, but no, I saw the light.
If you could pick a song that best describes you, what is the song and why?
I got to explain it. So I'm going to say I'm a boss. That's kind of my spirit song. And it's because, and I'm going to say that, just let's be clear, I'm not necessarily wired that way. I'm wired to work hard. I love to compete. I don't necessarily walk the earth thinking that, wins are necessarily going to be handed to me. So when I listen to that song, it's kind of that person that lets me get out of my head and focus on all the great things that have happened in my life. And kind of how I've gotten to where I've gotten is, hey, I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, but they're going to feel me. However this goes, they're going to feel all the work, all the stuff I put into it. So when I listen to that song, that's kind of like that superhero music kind of hits you. That's kind of how I get into that mindset. So that's kind of, I'll say that's my spirit song, because that's not necessarily how I'm naturally wired.
Shout out to Rick Ross, another 305 legend. So shout out to Ricky Rose. If you had to be a football player for one day, what position would you play?
Man, the little bit I played, I was a wide receiver. Now I was 5'3" and a little pleasantly chubby then. I'm 6'4" and high cut. So I don't know some of the cuts in and out of breaks at the top of the route. I don't know how great I'd be, but I'd run on the vertical plane. I'm pretty good. I think I can track it pretty well. But I don't know, when the pads come on, these boys, that's real life in there. I don't know that people, I think there's a lot of people out there, and it's funny, these conversations about flag football and all those things, it's real life in there, man. They might come ask you to insert against Myles Garrett, and you better ask yourself whether you want to play this sport or not. So if it's just for fun, I'll say wide receiver. We'll see if I'd actually show up.
Hey, Rand, this thing's come full circle because I'm 5'4" and chubby, so this works out perfect. Before and after.
And our final question is I'm gonna make it a two-part question. One, as a former hooper, what current or former NBA player would you compare your game to? And then the second part of that question, we do have
oh boy, what the? You couldn't have limited the pictures you asked for? Where did this come from? Oh man, I gotta put control. I gotta put controls in my life, man. I'm not living right.
And the second part of that question, is there anybody in the building that you think could give you buckets?
Oh, Josh McCown. Let me answer that first part.
So
I've been hearing about him since I got in the league. Before I knew anything about the league, people heard I had any interest in basketball. Like, have you met Josh McCown? Like, it's always the first thing out of people's mouths. Our boy AJ Highsmith was one of them. He can go. I've heard these stories and then just kind of watched him run around the field. He could definitely give me buckets. I got no shame in admitting that. I had such an interesting story. That kid, I love looking at that kid because that was my freshman year of high school. I thought I was going to be the next Penny Hardaway. That was the guy I wanted to be. I was a pass first point guard. I love getting people involved, call my own number at times. But I grew into kind of just an all around player. I wasn't that, obviously I walked on, became a JV player at Princeton, which was really cool because that kid in that picture was about 6 months from getting cut from his JV team. And the kind of what that did to my life and kind of how I've come out of it. It's when I look at that picture, it kind of takes me back to a certain place in my life. But Penny Hardaway was somebody I wanted to style my game after. Please don't ask anybody if I actually played like Penny Hardaway. I hope they wouldn't tell the truth, but that was one of my favorite players growing up.
All right, Rand, listen, I got one more surprise for Kwesi and for Rand. And I found this quote, Kwesi, when you were with Cleveland, and it asked you about being on Jeopardy, and you said you would not bet against yourself, and you believed that you would dominate 1990s hip-hop and basketball. So Rand doesn't know about this, but I got some 1990s hip-hop questions for you both. I'll let Kwesi go first.
Had you told me Rand was in my competition, I would have changed that answer. But Rand's pretty nice.
So listen, Rand knows my 1990s hip-hop. All I listen to is Tribe, so I don't know anything else. So I had to ask AI for these questions. That's how sorry I am. Here we go. All right, here we go. Dr. Dre's groundbreaking 1992 album, The Chronic, is widely credited with popularizing what subgenre of hip-hop, Kwesi?
Man, would they credit that for gangster rap? Would they credit that? Is that a subgenre?
That's not the answer that AI gave you. You got an answer, Rand?
What is G-Funk?
Oh, okay. 1-0 Rand. I didn't know the answer to that. Yeah, how about Rand? All right, Rand. You do you.
That's
all right,
here we go, Kwesi. By the way, terrible answer by me. Go
ahead. Here we go. What group, known for their eccentric and abstract lyrics, released the album Stakes is High and were key members of the Native Tongues Collective?
Oh, my God.
Rand's got his poker face on, too. Look at Rand.
Yeah, them stakes is high. I can playing the song in my head. Pass. I don't know. I'm blanking.
You said that was a part of native tongues?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who is Tribe Called Quest?
Oh, you're so close. De La Soul.
De La Soul. I was going to say De La Soul, like Far Side or something like that.
All right. I'll give you two more, then you can get out of here. All right, here we go.
We're cutting all these that Rand knew these questions. We're cutting these. Rand knew these questions.
Rand knew I wouldn't send him the answers to these questions. All right, here we go. Kwesi, this is you. Illicmatic, often hailed as one of the greatest hip-hop albums of all time, was the debut release from what Queensbridge rapper?
Nas, and I think it's one of the more overrated rap albums. Yeah, I'm gonna hit you with that hot take. Please don't. I don't know if we got to air that, but I have love for Nas. I do think he's one of those where people like it's like a thing to say you like Nas versus actually really appreciating that album. I think it's a great album. Don't get me wrong, but I think I guess a little bit more legs than I think it deserves.
You agree with that, Rand?
I'm a Hove guy, and not that you have to play one against the other. But I'll say Reasonable Doubt spoke to me more than Illmatic did.
That's probably where I probably come at it the same way Rand comes at it from.
All right, last one, Kwesi. Which female rapper, often called Queen Bee, rose to prominence in the mid-'90s as a member of the Junior Mafia and later as a solo artist?
Lil' Kim.
Okay, there we go. Got him out on a good note.
We had I think we're in a meeting the other day, and I don't know, I think somebody played it. It's all about the Benjamins, way back that verse for Kim K.R., man. The time of your life, man, it takes you back. Music's such a beautiful thing. I got on my board, my whiteboard right here. There's always time for music because sometimes this job gets a little crazy and you just forget about the simple things. So I always make sure I'm playing music. Rand, honestly, who taught me that was Rand. I didn't know we were allowed to. He'd have his door open, listening to Saha the Prince or something like that. I walked by and was like, is this okay? Are we allowed to, And so I really did pick that up from Rand, and it's something you try and just enjoy this job as best you can.
Rand, it feels like a lot of your coworkers are really into music. Some of the other people we've talked to are all about music, and I would imagine you had a big part in that.
I wouldn't say I had a big part in it, but like Coy said, hey, listen, I'm gonna listen to what I listen to because this helps with my motivation. And like Quay said, it puts you in a space where you want to get stuff done. And I always gave the disclaimer: if you hear too many B's and H's coming out of the office, just let me know. We can go to the clean version, but just let me know. But Quasi, man, we know you got to run. I appreciate you. I love you, bro. I thank you for this time. Like I said, in the opening, you could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us. With the First Pick podcast, so we appreciate you coming on.
Love you too, buddy. Appreciate you guys for having me out. I love the pod. I listened to a few episodes. Wish you guys all the success you guys deserve.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much, Kwesi. It's great meeting you. And Rand, thank you for setting this up. And you've been the latest guest on Cawthon's Corner here, so thank you, Kwesi.
All right, man. Unsullied by sponsors.
Unsullied by sponsors.